Our next presenter is Angel DeWitt, who has worked on a web page for the campus newspaper, the Burnian. All of our projects tonight are a lot of work. They take a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of dedication. And Angel decided that she would also like to throw in some customer requirements, just to spice things up a little bit. So she's going to tell us about that.
All right. So, like he said, I wanted to do the Burnian online. As you know, the Burnian is the newspaper for the school. Yeah. So it's the school newspaper. It limits stories about how many stories that you can read per issue. That only appears once or twice a month. And okay. So the workflow of the newspaper is that a staff writer would write the story and send it to the editor, and the editor would edit and then put it in the newspaper. That isn't shown very often. So what is included in making a website? You need requirement elicitation, a server, content management system, and users, which I will go more into. Requirement elicitation is the gathering of information of what the stakeholders need and the users want. So I went through a bunch of processes to create this website where there's 4 types: conversational, observational, analytical, and synthetic. Like it says, conversational is interviews, workshops, brainstorming, and then synthetic, storyboard, and prototyping are the processes I went through. To start off, I went through brainstorming of the ideas of what I thought Burnian did. So this was before I had ever met with them, and what I wanted it to do was I wanted to have a user log in, and it'll show a home page. They can change what they want to see, what interests them, and they would be able to follow a type of story or like it, and then it would, I was going to use data mining to process of what stories interest them most, and those stories would show up more often without them actually choosing. A couple things I wanted to add was a weather widget to let them know what current weather was in their city, and but I also wanted a calendar to show what events were going on campus, when sports events were going on, and so after my first meeting with the Burnian staff, I got an idea of what kind of things they were looking for. They were looking for like pages for each topic of the newspaper, such as student life, and these were just examples that I prototyped. They wanted to be connected to the networks, Facebook, Twitter, the other one, Instagram, and so after we got to talking, she agreed with the weather icon on the one on the left, and then she wanted the icons for the social networks that were like the bubbles instead of the like or like us on Facebook and all that. And we agreed for the one with the top news that they like the story that's presented and how it's presented instead of this one. Okay, how do we get the Burnian to show up? There are two types of servers. XAMPP was used on the local machine. It's where I can download WordPress and edit, make changes, and be able to switch it to the coder's machine, which is the school server, which presents it off to the computers that are connected to the school server, such as the library, computer lab, and office computers. Like I said, how the site will be viewed, students and faculty will be able to log in to a computer in the computer lab or a library or Burnian office, and they can see the site. Subscribers will be able to see a updated site. It won't be as updated as the one the faculty and students can see, because it takes a process for the web developer to package up the site and move it between computers and making changes to put it on the school server. So then I needed a content management system, which I was restricted to using WordPress. which was actually a good idea. It makes it easy to publish, edit, and modify the content that was posted on the site, and it's used from a central interface and a collaborative environment, and it avoids hand coding, so you don't have to know HTML, CSS, or JavaScript or any other thing. You just need to tell it where to put things. Once I downloaded WordPress, I came up with another prototype of things we had talked about. They wanted the tagline. You can't see it up here, but there's the tagline there. The Burnian headline. They were working on a new one, so I couldn't really put that in. We agreed that the calendar down at the bottom was probably a bad idea. This was the home page, and that was like if you clicked on one of the categories, that's what it would show up. And then it has a link to where you can see old archives of the stories. And we also agreed that this was probably too much. That is supposed to be stories that were posted recently. So instead, this up here actually shows recent stories, which we'll get to on a later prototype. So then they didn't like the colors. I finally got where I thought I was about done. This is where it changes stories back and forth. It links to the About Us page, the old archive of PDF of the old newspapers, and then the Blackburn site, which can be changed through settings. On the right, which is a page of a story, there's the recent stories on the left-hand side, and the archive and search on the right. And then you can choose from different categories on the top navigation, or there's a widget on the left side bar. So then I thought I was almost done, and I needed input of what other people thought besides just the Burnian staff, because these are other people who were going to see the site and how they felt about it. Questions I asked were whether they were satisfied with the site, which I actually got a bunch of positive feedback. I got 5 of them. All of them but one were very satisfied or satisfied. One was neutral. I think that was because I actually made them fill out the survey. So I don't think they really cared about answering it. They would all definitely view the site from time to time. When I asked if they needed changes to the color scheme, which I was tired of looking at, because it was either too black, too white, it just didn't feel right, and the red didn't show up quite well. So they said that it needed small changes or doesn't need to change, but none of them were too drastic. Things they liked about the site is that it was organized well and easy to find the topics that interest them. So the layout, the colors, Blackburn colors, and navigation features, what they like. The worst part, one person didn't like how it was hard to read. I guess there was too much black on black or white. I guess it was the white text on the black background. They just didn't like it. Someone didn't like the homepage. I guess they decided I needed different pictures for the stories, but I mean those pictures were used for the Burnian, so they were just kind of standing there. And something they would change was just the color of the head. They changed, can you see? Okay, so this is the Burnian headline. They didn't like that for some reason. That just shows all the statistics. Who are the users? I have the viewer and subscriber, so they can't, well, they can log into the site if they want to. They have to have a username. A contributor is anybody on the Burnian staff that writes any stories. I believe there's a setting where anybody can register to be a contributor, anybody can register, and then they automatically become a contributor. And the contributor stories cannot be automatically posted. They have to go through the editor, and the editor or admin can read through the story, make changes, take it over, and then it will still be posted as the contributor story once it's all done. The admin has total control of the site, can change any kind of settings, but for this project, they should just change, like the user settings, delete and add, and then the web admin and developer is the one who will take the site from coders, move it to a local machine, make theme changes, and then move it back to coders, and then that will also be the person who brings it onto the school server to be published for the subscribers to see. So then that comes to my project. The final project is a website where it makes it easier for the subscribers. It's less paper, and you can see the stories on a regular basis. And this is just the final project where you can see that the colors have changed. They preferred the black text with the white backgrounds. And this one hasn't really changed much since the previous one, just color scheme, really. That's it. So, let me get a demo of it.
Yeah, start the demo. Now, how many interviews did you have with people? I mean, requirements is pretty challenging to do.
Personal interviews, I didn't have too many, but it was back and forth emails. Like, we didn't like this, we should change this. But it was a lot of communication back and forth. Because it was hard to find time between working on this and homework and them working on the Burnian staff and both of us being busy.
Now, once people find it, I think no one really knows that it's available to them online. I think you'll get a lot more feedback.
Yeah, I posted it on this board to get it out. Professor Casey asked the Burnian staff to check it out, so I think that's where most of my responses came from. But like I said, I asked one of my friends to do it, and they just kind of answered it. They really give me good feedback. So this is the site on coders.blackburn.college. Has the most recent stories. These were actually done by the Blackburn staff, or the Burnian staff. As you can tell, they're not scanned in pictures. So if you would click on one of the categories up top. But over here is the archive. It has March and April, so those are the only times I've published stories. These are the most recent stories. Just shows their categories is the same as up top, only you can see all of them as the athletics is broken down. So these are all the categories that have stories as of right now. So if you went to one that didn't have a story, there's no post there because nobody has posted an athletics baseball story and tagged it.
So at this point, your job is pretty much done, unless they want to have changes to the structure. All of the content is...
Most of the content's done, unless they decide to change the color or, but besides that. And the most difficult part was the chain moving from computer to computer, but after a couple tries, it's pretty easy. And then so a user can just log in. So say, just a quick, if I was just anybody from the Burnian staff, so I'll just use it. Okay, so this is their their dashboard and they have very limited, this is a contributor, they have very limited what they can do. They can view, add posts, see comments, and see their profile settings. So what a user contributor would do is they would just go through, type their story. Whatever. And then they would go through of which page they wanted it to show up on. Say this was a admin and academics in the newspaper. And then they would put tags of what the story would be about, make it easier for them to find a story through the search. And then they can add a feature image if they wanted. The feature image is just what shows up on the main page. It's not the picture that shows up in the story. Like you saw the Coogan story where it showed his picture. That you actually have to go through and add it in this area. And then they would submit it for review. And it is not published to the site. You can't see it if you went to the admin. Nothing new there. So then if I was editor,
Should we be concerned that you know everybody's password?
well, I'm not gonna keep this sheet of paper, and they can go through and change their password later. I just need to keep that part so I can give a demo. So they have a little bit more to do on their dashboard. They can change the media library, links that show up on the site, change pages. And so they'll go to the post and they'll see that there's a new story. And they can go to edit it, make sure it's correct, and then publish it. And then
So you just published that to our website?
So as you can see, yeah, I can delete it. It's really easy to delete. But as you can see, the new story shows up after the editor can go through and accept it.
What load of work?
So that is the main. Yes, Brian?
What's the most challenging part about creating a website for someone else?
Most challenging. What I thought was the most challenging was moving back and forth the duplicator and finding the plugins. Layouts and themes. A lot of the layouts or themes restrict what you can change. I got lucky enough to find Parabola, which allows you to change a lot of the different settings. Most of them will restrict what you can have, really. That was my hardest part. Yes?
Are you leaving behind somebody who can sort of pick up and where you left off in case you
Well-
make some changes or keep it up?
Well, I'm not specifically leaving one person, but
Is it well documented? I'm just
yes,
wondering
I
about
have
the
like a whole
longevity
user
of
manual
this.
that goes through each step of what you need to do. There's a couple steps that I didn't go too much into detail because it's not necessarily their job but yeah, I have documentation. I even have a copy of it to give it to the Burnian so that they know. I've sat down with a Burnian staff member, led them through it. They seem to get through it pretty easy. And like the posting wise, they have posted their own stories already. Yes.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much, Angel.